Franklin, and I have grown up always really enjoying art, creating art, learning about art, artists, really anything in the world of art I've enjoyed. So like me and many of you have probably heard of very influential artists such as Pablo Picasso or Vincent van Gogh. I think it's really cool that we can recognize them just by the name or sometimes even by their work. What I find super interesting though is that someone that may have worked alongside of Picasso have never heard of before. Henri Matisse, for instance. They were lifelong friends and they worked alongside each other for quite some time, but I've never heard of him before this. Henri Matisse was a French painter, sculptor, really just an art enthusiast. And he was born in 1869 in a small village in France. He had a couple brothers and his family had a tiling business. However, he wanted to go study law in Paris in 1887. A couple years after attending law school, he had to get surgery for his appendix and he was out for a while, and while he was recovering, his mother actually came and visited and brought him art supplies, and this is where he found his love for art. He decided that this was his calling, and even though it disappointed his father, he really did want to go to school to learn more about art, find out what all he can do, and really just change his whole career path. In 1898, he had a daughter with a model, Caroline, but they did not marry. He ended up marrying Amelia about a few years later, and they ended up having two boys. It was about the beginning of the 1900s when he really initially started his career in art. He painted a lot of still lifes and landscapes in like a traditional style and a lot of earthy tones. And while he was dabbling in this style, he was still out searching and getting a lot of influences by other painters and artists. And this is when he was introduced to the Impressionism style. Vincent van Gogh is known for this. And that's when he kind of like ditched his traditional style of still paintings and landscapes and really wanted to take a whack at the Impressionism style. So he changed his earthy tones to the really bright colors and like the very like movement type paintings. And he really enjoyed this, and that's when he was introduced to the Fauvism style and movement. He was one of the main leaders for this movement. It is a movement that came out of Paris in the early 1900s. Even though it was a very short-lived style, it was very influential for many people. Him, of course, as well. He worked alongside a lot of great artists, but this is where he met Pablo Picasso, and they were lifelong friends. They really encouraged each other and really pushed each other. It's a friendly competition, really, and that's why I always find it kind of strange that we know Pablo Picasso, but we don't know Henri Matisse. Henri Matisse really just loved work through and through. He loved painting, he loved learning about different styles. He would try to learn different styles like the Japanese culture, other cultures. He loved it so much. He would buy others' work even though he may not afford it. And sometimes he was like looked down upon because he couldn't support his family through parts of his career, even though his like main love was art. In his final years, he loved art so much he was dependent on a wheelchair, and even though he couldn't paint and do sculptures like he did in his earlier years, he still found some source of medium of art so he could still do art. And one thing that always came up was like cutting paper collages and really just anything he could do while he was in a wheelchair. One of his last pieces actually went to a New York church. It was a stained glass. It was very beautiful. And I thought it was kind of strange that he wanted something here in the United States rather than something maybe like in Paris or his hometown. But it's very cool to learn about an artist that, you know, worked alongside of Pablo Picasso and was very influenced by Vincent van Gogh's work, yet I've never heard of him. I think it was a very cool opportunity to see that there are so many different artists out there.